Here.
Mrs. Mitchell? Here. Mr. O'Donnell? Ms. Pellet? Mr. Sweeney?
Yes, here.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Here.
All right, we're present. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic that stands one nation.
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with provisions of the Act, Vernon Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published, and adequate notice has been provided, and notice of this meeting has been properly posted in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law.
Thank you. Item D is closed session. It is recommended that the board enter closed session for purposes of discussing contractual and personnel matters. Can I have a motion? Mr. Zimmerman?
Second.
Mr. Sweeney? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're in close. Dina, I think we're going to flip you over to the other room. Hold on.
Alrighty.
Each search is different, but the steps are the same. And I'm very pleased to be able to talk to you about that tonight. I did facilitate your last search. Since then, I've done a whole bunch more. I can tell you that it really is one of my favorite things. So I just like speaking about it. I have a presentation printed it out for you, but if you have questions, by all means, ask me now, ask me later. I am your field service rep before, during, and after, whether you use me as a facilitator or not. And I'm very pleased to support this board. I know you do very important work. This is very, very, I'm saying that word that I absolutely mean. So what we're going to talk about tonight are the vacancy, the process, and then the transition, because that's really, those are the components of a search, right? Transition being the very last step. So let's focus on the vacancy and the process. Before I start, are there any questions at the outset? Okay, so yeah, by all means, interrupt me if you'd like. So there are certain requirements, right? As far as the state says, who can do the job, right? So have to be properly certified, right? As an existing superintendent, a sitting superintendent will have a school administrator certificate, and up and coming will need a certificate of eligibility. That is the requirement. No wiggle room on that. And you may have heard, especially since we're up north, of the Jersey First Act, where if you're working in a public school district in New Jersey, you have to live in New Jersey. Okay? There are within a year of being hired. That's the law. If someone is a New York, Pennsylvania resident, works in a New Jersey school district currently, they may be grandfathered. Well, grandfather is probably not the right term, but they may not have to, right? If there's like a 7 business day transition between one district and the other, they're not going to have to. But that's kind of very fact specific. I just want to throw it out there. As far as contracts go, you can only offer a 3-, 4-, or 5-year contract for superintendent, more, no less. And the executive county superintendent has to approve that contract, which is negotiated between the board and the candidate. And there are no salary caps. Veterans remember, I'm sure, the days of a superintendent salary cap, and NJSBA and NJAS did not like it. We railed against it with good reasons that it's gone away, right? But that being said, and again, your executive county superintendent has to approve the contract and the working agreement. The salary the compensation that you offer your superintendent has to be in line with the county, right? It's in a subject to comparability requirements, is how I put it. So you're not going to be able to pay someone something that is outlandish for Sussex County, regardless of the type of experience they have. So that that whole, epoch where there were superintendent salary caps, back in the day, the state added some, little bells and whistles to sort of make the whole concept a little easier to swallow, where districts could put some add-ons in there to make their compensation package a little more attractive. And these haven't gone away, so I want you to know that they exist. However, I do see them being rolled into base salary. But having a high school entitles someone to an extra $5,000, serving an additional administrative position, another $5,000, and if you were shared with another district, $15,000. Another thing that is left over from those days of the salary caps are merit goals. And those are a negotiated item. Not all districts have them. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of districts move away from these and that type of compensation being rolled into base salary, because these merit goals and all of these stipend options, they were not pensioned, right? So just be aware that they do exist. And with the merit goal, which again have to be approved by the ECS, you can have up to 5. 3 of them need to be quantitative goals. In other words, they need to be proven that they were achieved quantitatively with numbers, or 2 qualitative goals, a little more subjective, I suppose, is a fair word to use. And you could compensate your superintendent accordingly, right? So up to just about 15% added to their salary. But again, they're not required. They've always been a negotiable item, and districts have been moving. That's been my experience. So that being said, let's talk about the process. There's 3 stages, and throughout, notice that little box. Communication is critical. So what does that mean? Because a lot of what we're going to be doing, or what you're going to be doing in the process, is going to be confidential, right? You're not going to release the names of your candidates. You're not going to have your candidates interview in open session. You're not going to have, members of the community interview your candidates. It's, confidential information. People's careers are being, affected by, any kind of leak of that information. So I will tell you at the outset, regardless of how you conduct the search, confidentiality is crucial. We've seen searches railroaded and blow up when there's been a leak. Okay, so just want to make that point. But your stakeholders are curious, right? They want to know where you're at. How are you doing your job? How are you going to get the right person? Because a lot of people can do the job, but who should do the job, right? And how are you going to determine it? And where are you at in the process? What steps are you following? So you do let your stakeholders know where you're at, what plan you're following, right? I recommend a section on the website that has a link to the job description and the application, that has a link to the surveys that you'll use with your constituents on, input what you'd like to see in the superintendent. That lets them know where you are in the interview stage, that lets them know how many people apply. All of that is of great interest to your stakeholders, and there's no reason why that can't be shared. And I do find that having a tab on the website is a beautiful thing. If you can do that, all districts approach it differently, but that's honestly my favorite. So it's something for you guys to consider. But
I did speak with Matt about that, and he said that would be easily done. I think we go ahead and do it.
And I can show you examples of how that looks in real time. It's good to know that it needs to be very nice.
Oh, no, absolutely.
So let's talk about, I think I just kind of went up through that, right? So let's talk about timeline and steps. And I want to iterate this very clearly. The timeline is important to keep in mind. This is like everything else in board governance, it's a methodical process if you're going to be doing it right. I will also say that it requires the commitment of everyone on the board who is non-conflicting, right? When you guys set dates, when you say we're going to do this, and then you start saying, but I can't make this meeting, or I don't know about this or that, that is going to, again, have a very negative effect on your search process. You don't want to do that. And you were put here by your constituents to make important decisions for this district. And there is no more important, but I mean it, decision that you can make than who's going to lead the school district for the next 3 to 5 years and hopefully beyond that. Let's be honest, like that whole multi-year contract. Ultimately get the right person for this job. So that being said, let's look at different steps, but knowing that as methodical and plodding as this may seem, the timeline does not drive the decision. This is too big of a deal. This will impact your students and your district for many years. You cannot settle on anything. And we'll also say that what I aim to do with boards, and the board makes the decision. If you're working with a facilitator such as myself, we have no say in what decisions you make. We give you the information that you need. We don't make any calls. You make the calls. But you cannot settle. You cannot settle. You cannot say, well, we're all suboptimal. I guess this is the lesser of the evils. We really got to get moving here. No. You don't have the right person in the pool. You can go through interview 2 and 3, and it's still not feeling right. And I am telling you, as painful as it could be, close the search and reopen. There's a lot of talent out there. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I want to be very clear that you make the decision. You need to be the right one for your district. And on occasion, there's a bump or two in that process. You'll get over the course with the commitment. It may sound a little sober and negative here. It's really not. It's a great process. I love doing searches. So it's actually a very, it's great professional development for the board, and it can be a really unifying factor for the board. So I like that an awful lot. And most of the time, when I do a search, the board is better off for it. They emerge as a better board, which is another good. So let's talk about the steps. 3 steps: preparation, collection, and selection. Preparation, you decide if you want, and you select a search firm. You determine what kind of budget you're looking at, right? So how much of a salary are you going to spend ultimately? Get a range. You're not going to publish that, or I don't advise you to publish it. But the board by the time you settle on a finalist is not the time to say, so what range are we looking at? You have to decide that beforehand, right? And we also have, when you are interviewing candidates, you can't ask them, you can't ask on their applications anymore what they're making. It is public information, so it doesn't trouble to find it out. But it is disheartening to have someone who is advancing to the final stages and then you come up with a number and they're like, oh, wait, that is just so below what I'm willing to accept. So we can kind of get little, indicators on whether this can be fit for this district, based on that kind of number, but we can't really ask it. But my point is you have to know what we're going to do. All. And developing a calendar, extremely important. Set those dates, put them together, set them in stone, right? That will keep you grounded. That will keep the search process moving. Once you start moving dates around because of this obligated, then it starts to negatively affect the process and it becomes kind of frustrating. And also developing criteria. So I've said that we have a criteria-based search. And you decide what that criteria is going to be, right? What's most important to you? Because like I said, a lot of people can do this job in the state of New Jersey, but who should be doing it? Who should be doing it? You get this. And we decide that before we even advertise. Those criteria will be listed in your ad so that as prospective applicants are reading about you, they can determine if they feel right at the outset. And you'll solicit input from the stakeholders. Because although this is the board's decision, you can't make that decision in that. You do, in my strong opinion, need to understand what your stakeholders are looking for and give them, easily accessible, clear ways to participate in the process that way. And then you advertise. I think a 5-week window for advertising is optimal. Again, it's up to the board, but in my experience, that's been a best practice. And then once the advertising window closes and you have all the application packages, the board can review every single one of them. Determine based on the criteria that the board has selected and the common threads that are coming out of those input sessions or surveys or all of that data collection from your stakeholders, who's starting to match up with that, right? And then we invite those people to a first interview. I strongly advise 3 interview rounds. I know some consultants will say 2 is sufficient. I disagree. And throughout your narrowing in. That's going to take you, I would say, 4 weeks. Could be a little less depending on the commitment of the board, but that's a solid month of work. Solid month. That's going to be your focus. Whatever month we choose, that's what you guys are going to be living, breathing, eating, sleeping about, okay? So it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. And then once you have a finalist, you'll want to do a background check on them. You'll want to do reference checks on them. They can visit your district and you can visit theirs before the contract is inked, right? Just to make sure that you've got the right fit and you've left no stone unturned. You enter into contract negotiations if everything's turning out favorably. And as I mentioned, the ECS approves that. You do your child misconduct, your sexual misconduct, child abuse check like you do for any prospective employee. And as long as everything comes back clean, then you appoint in public, right? So I would urge you, and in the searches that I facilitate, do not do reference checks until you've arrived at a single finalist, because that speaks to the confidentiality of the process, right? So,
I have one quick question.
Yes.
So, for the interview, we have 7 non-conflicted, so we would have all 7 in the interview.
yes.
Who else would be in that interview?
Sometimes the board secretary is present, but that's it.
So we wouldn't have any members of teachers, school, nobody like that?
No, not in an NJSBA facilitated search. And, you know, I highly, I don't like that. I highly recommend against it. And there are several reasons for that. But you know, the most important one is that this is your job, right? It's, you know, like it or not, it's on you, right? And I think that you like it. That's what you're here to make decisions for the district. You're ready for it, right? You're prepped for it. This is the biggest. So it's on you. The other reason why, the other significant reasons why I advocate for the board exclusive process is secondly, the confidentiality piece. You all are obligated under the School Ethics Act, under the law, to keep this information confidential. So I do feel pretty confident when I work with my board members, right? They're going to keep this under wraps and keep it where it needs to be. But other members of the community are not beholden to such a law, right? I'm not saying that they will, but I'm just saying that you don't have that safeguard in place. But most important is that when you add other voices to the process, you are probably setting up your finalists for some difficulty. Because although we work very hard to get the board to be a unanimous, you know, decision, and that will be evidenced by your vote. You'll vote in public. Everyone will know where you stand. We're not going to be quite sure where your committee members stand. They're not obligated to tell where. And if things are not going so well, you know, and they, you know, out of the gate, or there's the first bump or whatever, then it becomes, you know, out of all the 5, this is the one that, you know, I didn't really like. I really wish we had hired, you know, Evan Smith was really great, you know, but we hired Kathy Smith. Well, you know, that's it. So, you know, just to be very direct, those are reasons why I highly advocate for the exclusive process. And, you know, it's not the law that you have to do it that way, but it is something that we require of our searches. So if you did want to bring in other voices, then you need to, you know, do it yourselves or do it with another facilitator. But as a board member, back in the day, we used a different facilitator and we used a board exclusive process too. So I think that that's the industry norm. But thanks for the question. So, preparing for it, right? What you will do as a board, with guidance from your facilitator, right, is to determine what is your vision for the district, right? We've got to put it on paper. What do you want? Now, there's a difference between required and preferred. Required are the certs, right? Required is that you comply by the Jersey First Act, right? All of that stuff. Required is that you pass the child abuse and that pass the trash thing. Those are required. But honestly, the word preferred is probably your best bet, under a lot of other criteria, because we want to cast a wide net, right? If you're saying, I want someone who has had 5 years previous superintendent experience, that's going to cut down your pool significantly. Because once you say required, if you've got somebody with 3 years superintendent experience, then you should not be interviewing that person. You could get into some hot water that way, right? That being said, you should have an idea of what type of professional experience you want in your candidate. What kind do you want to make sure that someone has been a school principal? You want to make sure that someone has been a superintendent or assistant superintendent. For how many years? Do they need to have a doctorate? Those sorts of things. Would you like to target applicants who have worked in like districts? Would you like to target applicants who are strong in strategic planning, who have special education expertise, who have very strong knowledge of New Jersey law, those sorts of things, an excellent communicator? Well, there's a wish list of dozens and dozens of characteristics that we'll want in our superintendent. We need to determine, what the anywhere from the 3 to 5 most important areas are. Most important areas. Like I said, you should make a calendar and stick to it. One of the things that is, I don't want to say a silver lining of this awful pandemic, but what the pandemic did show us is that you can meet remotely as a board. And I conducted a few searches that were completely online. And they were successful. You can interview online for, if need be. And that's just something to kind of keep in your back pocket. That being said, now that we are out of the acute days of the pandemic, I don't think anything really compares to in-person. Many of those. You'll also need to be clear with your stakeholders on how they can participate in the process, right? So setting dates for those. What I do with my districts is offer an online survey. We did this before in Vernon, and also an in-person, session for you, one for your staff and one for your parents, where everyone kind of, answers a certain set of questions. It's a standardized set of questions for each of the stakeholder groups, and that way we can see what common themes are emerging. It's very useful. I have in the handout what a sample calendar looks like, and this is just kind of basic what's typical for such calendar. Yours will be different, right? Another thing that needs to be determined here is like how long you'll have when your starting date. That's the decision the board has to make, right? How quickly do you want somebody in here and when you do it? I mentioned the advertising. I need you to do me a favor, where it says, if you have a pen on you, okay, where it says appears on njsba.org without charge to the board. If you use NJSBA as a facilitator or perform the search without the assistance, you have to cross that, or perform the search without the assistance of a facilitator. We just changed that in the last 2 weeks. So I just found that out, and my apologies, but advertising is clearly important, regardless of what path you take. One of the best things about using NJSB is our ad placement. Our website is the place where candidates go to look for jobs, and we promulgate it all over the place. We have a very wide social media reach. We have a tremendous email distribution list of past applicants. We send it to the counties. We send it to the local colleges. It's in fact, I think I sent you the proposal package that lists all of the entities with which we advertise, and that's at no charge to the. if the board wanted to, you know, vote for print advertising or, you know, njschooljobs.com, or if you have an account with something like that, that's fine. That may be an extra charge. But I will tell you, I've done searches for tiny Blairstown and huge Clifton. We didn't spend a dime on it. We got a great candidate pools. And the other thing too is like our application says, where did you hear about us? And I'm telling you without fail, it's the JSBA website, you know, so save yourself some money if you go in, just advertise to us. I think we have talked about this stuff, input surveys, confidentiality, inclusive process, so I'm not going to spend much time on that. But let's talk about how you'll determine who you see, right? And the application materials will illuminate that. So when you use NJSBA, we have a tailored application for your district. It'll have all the legal questions. It'll have, you know, the home address, the job history, blah, 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 blah. But it will also have essay questions on there that the district determines what it's going to look like. So it's customized to your district and gives you an idea of what, you know, a good writing sample, as well as kind of getting your applicant's take on critical issues to the board and the district. We ask for a letter of interest and a resume, and I need both. We also make sure that they're certificated by asking them to provide us with that. Transcripts, if they have doctorates, so we can, you know, have evidence that it's not something phony baloney kind of thing, low quality. We will make sure that we're looking at real professionals here, and references, and also performance evaluation. We ask for 2 years. Yes, in fact, now we've got you can't advance through the process without supplying 2 years of evaluations and tweak the application fields, because I think that that's very useful. And also references. And when you do land on findings, a very robust reference check is written. And that's after you've selected something. Once the application window closes, then together, the board should review every iota of data that comes in, every package, even someone that, you know, your facilitator might say, I don't think this person is very qualified, right? But that's up to you, right? That's up to you. You get guidance from the facilitator, but you make the decision. So I think it's very important not to leave anybody out. So look closely at it. We have an online delivery process now, so all the applications that come in electronically are distributed to the board members, not to the board members. And you get to look at everything. Interviews take place in executive session. You mentioned that, and as each, you know, interview round is finished, you kind of narrow it, obviously. So round 2, go to round 3. I would recommend that the first interviews are very you know, are rather brief in comparison to your other conversations. They're standardized, they're very structured. Every applicant gets the same questions. We're just trying to see if they would be a cultural fit at the outset and if they know what they're talking about, right? The second round is more detailed, right? The questions start to become differentiated with different candidates. Somebody brought something up in the first interview that you'd like to monitor. There's something in their application package that you want more clarification on. And there's something in the job or in one of the job reviews that you need to talk a little bit about. What's their, you know, they brought up social and emotional learning and spoke very passionately about it in the first interview. Let's delve into that a little bit more, those sorts of things. So the second interviews are by their nature going to be longer. They're going to be more candidate focused. And then you're going to, as you're conducting those conversations, what's in your mind is, can we advance this person to be a seriously considered client? And from that round, we go to the finals. You may have one particular candidate who shines throughout the first and second, and their package is great, and they're matching up all the credentials, and I still recommend the third interview. No holds barred. Everybody asks whatever question you need to know where that person leaves the door, whether or not you can support the house. And it can be anything. I mean, sometimes it's a formal presentation, sometimes it's kind of a Wild West almost, and sometimes, honestly, sometimes there's a pizza, and you know, if you're soda involved, and it's just very informal. I've done all sorts. I think it depends on, you know, It's very fluid, so I can't really tell you what that would look like until you get a lot further in the process. But when you walk out of that, do you all feel good about this? Right? And then one candidate for as a reference for reference checking, background check, district visits, and contract. However, I do think it's important not to release anyone from the search prematurely in case there's a bump somewhere along the way and someone who is like your finalist turns out not to be. We don't want anyone feeling alienated. Searches do draw a lot of talent, and you may be real close between number one and number two, and I really wouldn't want number two to go away if number one doesn't work out. And I think we've kind of talked about all this, except for appointment at a board meeting, which should be very celebratory. We take straw polls throughout, but we can't vote in executive session. You vote. And that's actually the culmination of a very long process, and you should be proud of your good work. Invite your superintendent, introduce them to all your district stakeholders. You can publicize beforehand. Their family can come. It's really a great event. And that's what that looks like, right? So, and when we talk about reference and background checks, I do want to make the point that your applicants will supply references. But it is also important to contact unsupplied references. There is a box that candidates check off on the NJSBA application that says, I understand that you can and might and likely will call anyone you want to about this application. And we do that in due time, only on one person and only after we let them know. Because if we are calling around for somebody who's currently employed in the district, especially as a superintendent, they need to let them. Cat's gonna come out. But for all of the supplied references that say probably the same thing in person, I'm not saying that they're not, but I think unsupplied references are very frustrating. Right? If someone has, it's not listed the PTA as a reference, well, let's find out who's on the PTA. Call them. Police chief and their superintendent, they should have been talking to the local police at some point during their tenure with the district. Let's talk to them. Business administrator, yep, I want to talk to them. That's what it is. Very, very important. And district visits, right? That's a great thing. We were not able to do these in days of the pandemic. But I would like my board to say we've left no stone unturned. So I'm seeing more of these and I like them, right? If it's feasible, right? Again, your timeline doesn't drive the decision, so consider this carefully. Have your finalists meet with different stakeholder groups before the deal is inked, just to make sure there are no yellow lights. And I'm talking only one person because the board makes the decision. Not where you roll two people out and try to say, okay, you meet with my deal, right? It's your choice. And you can visit the district that the superintendent is coming to, that your prospective superintendent is coming from. Now, they'll be on their A game and they want to tell you how great they are, right? I'm sure of it. But, it can be very illuminating, right? To see what their A game looks like. If you're going to a tour of their facilities and they look awful, maybe that's telling you something. I don't know, right? Just something else. And then again, non-conflicted board members participate in the vote and discussion, but conflicted board members can certainly be at the dais. And you can call a special meeting board for this, or you can appoint at a regular meeting. If you're doing this with enough lead time, then you can probably schedule this around standing. But being that it's the end of the year and we haven't had a reorg yet, that's probably not the case here. But that's pretty much the process. So I am wondering if you have any questions about the process in general or about the NJSBA facilitated process. Because the steps that I've told you about, you can do by yourself. If you have the time, you absolutely can. And I did give you a document, a checklist called Superintendent Search the Process, where you can see all of the stuff that I'm talking about, that I've spoken about in numerical order and who does what. So, any thoughts, any questions? I know you're. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Did you want to, I don't know if the board got a financial update of the different services you offer and how much you charge?
Sure.
Not
If the board is interested in any other questions besides that? Okay, so we have 4 different levels of search. The first one is called a board assisted search. It is $4,000, it is bare bones. And I'm going to be very direct and tell you it's not even worth it. The only good thing about that is that you get to advertise on our website and you do an application. But I do nothing else for it. I take the applications in, I look at them, I create a list like here are the people who are qualified, here are the people who are not qualified, best of luck, right? That's why I say it's hardly worth it, right? The next step up is the $7,000, which offers more support. With the $7,000, I will facilitate input sessions for your stakeholders and a online survey, if you like, for your district stakeholders. Take all of that data and put it in a comprehensive report for the board to consider. I will also have that list, you know, here's your qualified people, here's your unqualified people. I actually do an ABC list. Here's the most qualified, here's people who are qualified, here's people who are underqualified, and give them to you. And I will also schedule interviews, right? I won't be at the interviews, but I'll schedule them for you and I'll help you develop interview questions. I have a question bank too that you can work off of. That's the $7,000 level. The $12,500 level, I think, is really the best one. And this has been demonstrated to me very clearly since the pandemic. With the $12,500, I do all of the stuff in the $7,000 search. I'm also present at all of the interviews and help the board come to consensus at the end of each round. But I also do a preliminary interview of all of the applicants who applied, except for the ones that I couldn't with conscience recommend. Right? If I know someone is just not appropriate for your district, I will probably not spend the time interviewing, but it's few and far between. I will tell you, but to give you an example, if I get an applicant who has had, 7 jobs in 3 years, I'm not going to waste my money. Right? But that's the low bar. If I know someone is in trouble, so not to be indelicate, I probably won't be talking. Okay? But if you say, no, we like Mr. Job Jumper, interview them, I'll do it. That's fine. And I ask them questions based on the input sessions that I've conducted and the surveys, right? So they're kind of tailored to Vernon, so that when I present the packages to you, I'll have some insight that's not coming out on the computer screen, right? Especially when we're talking about each district is different, right? Some may be in dire financial straits, so you need someone who's real talented that way, right? Some may be, really their out of district placements are very high, so you need someone with a real strong knowledge base in special education. I'll be able to hone in on that, based on my conversations with you and what you want when I talk to these people. And I will have all of that done by the time we sit together, usually on a Saturday for 3 hours to go through everything. And then we make the selection. Again, I schedule all of the interviews and I'm with you for all of the interviews. And I can also help schedule with administration what a district visit would look like, those sorts of things. I do not get involved in any level on contract negotiation. That's none of my business. I'd like to know a range, like I said, but anything other than that is none of my business at all. And then the highest level is 15,000, which is all the stuff on the 12.5, and also a strategic plan. Okay. And also, if you looked at the matrix with all the checklists, I think I've gotten all of them. There's a transition workshop that we do after hire, where we talk about setting goals and communication norms, and non-conflicted members participate in that as well. But I'll do that for anyone. Even people who don't use me as a facilitator, because I'm your field service rep. I want you guys to see. So I'm here before, during, and after for you guys.
Do you have the NJSBA have sample contracts that they like?
We
or
do.
don't, that we could use as references
We
for
do.
getting the new contract?
And we do have our legal and labor relations folks. So I can arrange, they, since they're based in Trenton, they come out to my district remotely, but they can, conduct, it takes about 45 minutes or so, a session with the board on what's a negotiable item, what trends they see. I also have access, of course, to all sorts of data, what are the superintendent salaries in Sussex County, Northwestern New Jersey, based on district size throughout the state, district configuration. So, and that's available to you no matter what path. But that contract training is available for the 12-5 or the 15. That's available. Thank you.
Anybody else? This was great. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And my info's there. You have it. Let me know if I can help. I will say email's the best way to reach me these days. But I'd be pleased to answer any of your questions about this at all. All right. That's it's very nice. It's a beautiful school district. And beautiful school. And whoever takes this job can do a lot for kids. And that's who you're looking for, someone who's really passionate and who can make a difference. So thank you very much for letting me talk about it, Kelly. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so then we'll move on to item G, approval of the meeting minutes. Everybody have a chance to take a look at those. Maybe then a motion for approval.
So moved.
Okay.
Ms. Luther? I'll come back to her. Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Manziana?
Abstain.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Is Dina back on?
She was on and then dropped out, came back on and dropped out again.
Yeah, she said that she just texted me that she's having issues.
Okay. All right.
I'll just text her.
Motion carries.
We'll move on to public participation. Anybody in the audience would like to come up and have comments, please do so. Nobody? No? Anybody online? I think we do have a lot to see. No, they're under attendees.
Yes,
Anybody online?
there is one person online. He was raising his hand. It was Martin Finger.
Oh, Martin, can you hear me?
Let me see if I allow him to talk.
Martin, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. How are you today?
Okay, fine. I want to bring something up that I brought up a couple of times before, but not in the last few years.
Okay.
The reason I bring it up for two things. One thing I read on the today's agenda, and the other thing is last time you guys said you're all for transparency. Until about 2011, all minutes and agendas were searchable PDFs. Then they became unsearchable PDFs, and I was told when I brought this up that there was a software upgrade and the board office no longer has the capability to produce searchable PDFs. 2 months after me complaining about that, all previously searchable PDFs were made unsearchable. which means you can type in my name or my daughter's name and run on POE meeting agenda or minutes, and you will get Google hits from 2010 and 2011. But then when you go to the link, it will give you a PDF and you won't be able to find it, where my name is, unless you read the whole PDF. Every superintendent, except the last one, I didn't ask them because I kind of gave up, yeah, and board president said, we do not have the capability, yeah. So last time you said you have for transparency. Today's minutes, today's agenda is not searchable. But Mr. Rogers' superintendent report is searchable. So he obviously has the capability to do so. Now, to get technical, if you write a PDF, if you write a text document in Word, and then you click on Save as PDF, it's searchable. If you print it out and then run the printer through a scanner, it's not searchable because it becomes a picture. Like if you take a picture of a piece of paper, that's what the scanner does for you. So the question is, what is your status on this now? Why are we not making it searchable? I was told by a prior POE member in like 2014 who wants to stay anonymous that you guys got annoyed with people being able to search the PDFs of the past, because then I could maybe search for Martin Piringer and I say, Martin Piringer said on the February blah blah meeting of 2020, this and that, now he says something else, why does he do that? Okay, why do you do that? So my question is, are you going to make it transferable again so you can Google the documents, or what is the reason to not do it? That is my question.
I don't get annoyed, so I could tell you that that's not the reason why we're not doing it. So so you did a Google Doc and that's why it's searchable, correct?
I'm not even sure about the documents he's referring to, but
The minutes he's talking about. So
The superintendent report is certain.
So when you go on for the minutes, you would be able to just type in Martin Piringer and anything that he ever said would come up.
Well, he's saying that the scanned documents are not searchable.
Scanned documents are not searchable.
My document is a.
Your document, you probably used Word and clicked on Save as PDF.
So I immediately am going to reach out to Matt Shea and I'm going to
That's
come to the
exactly-
board office to see how our documents are produced.
That's right. When you're printing, it's just don't save it as a PDF.
It also then becomes maybe an issue, depending on how because you now store them on a Google Drive. There are settings on the Google Drive that the Google Drive is searchable or not searchable. Okay, so you maybe, I haven't spent the time on verifying that, be double protected to keep your minutes and agenda secret from Google searches. Okay, so, all right, please find out, and it would be great if in the while I haven't double checked, I haven't spoken this much lately, but I also would like to urge, which was another pet peeve in this direction from me in the past, minutes often, as when it comes to comments, were very sketchy. So for example, my comment today would be captured in one sentence as Martin Piringer spoke about PDFs. Okay, please don't do that. Please be more detailed than that. All right, that's it then. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
Kelly, may I comment?
Justin's going to speak, Martin, too.
I just want to speak to one point that was made. I've been on the board for the last 5 years. Teresa, you've been on the last 6 or 7 years. To my knowledge, there's no grand conspiracy to make the minutes of the board in any way less accessible for the public. If that has been done unintentionally because of the way documents are being saved or uploaded, I'm sure that we could find a way to fix that, but this isn't because board members or anybody was getting annoyed by members of the public for asking questions about minutes. So I just wanted to clarify that for the record that, do you know of any, that this ever coming up amongst board members that we don't want the
No,
minutes
not
to be
at all.
searchable?
No, not to my knowledge. But thank you for bringing it to our attention. You know, we'll try to rectify it, but it's nothing, you know, that we, plan to do by any means. There's not some grand scheme to hide anything. If anything, I think our board would be very transparent. More than most.
Well, I hope so. And I don't, as I said, I don't want to get into names, but I have raised the issue with multiple board members in face-to-face, and all the superintendents except, and assistant superintendent, except Mr. Vino and Chuck McKay in the past, because I actually gave up. Just today when I saw that Mr. Rogers' superintendent report was searchable, I said, oh, we do have the capability.
Well, so then now that we know that Mr. Rogers can do all this, he will now be in charge of all our minutes.
It's very simple. All you need to do is write it in Word or something like this, or Open Office, and or Excel, and click on Save as PDF, and it's searchable.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so much, Martin.
Thank you, Ms. Berger.
You have a good night.
Bye.
Okay, I think that's it. We'll close it to the public. There's nobody else. And Mr. Rogers.
National matters, we're pleased to announce BTS students as the district honors of the month for September. Their artwork is being displayed at the main office. Cedar Mountain Primary School hosts its annual Fall Harvest Open House on Saturday, September 17th, 2022, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. This program, held throughout the campus of Cedar Mountain, spotlights various curricular programs and local community company, the PAL, Girl, Boy Scouts, Project Self-Sufficiency, and more. There will be games, crafts, and food prepared by Sodexo. This program is being funded by the generous NJEA Pride Grant written by the VTEA. All are invited to attend. HIB self-assessment public hearing. C, in accordance with the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, each school's self-assessment is attached. The board and administration will entertain questions and comments on this matter at this time. Annually, the superintendent will share the self-assessments with the Board of Education, and the report will be presented to the public attachment A. D, Week of Respect, the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, PL 210 C 122, requires that the week beginning with the first Monday in October, October 3rd through 7th, 2022, of each year be designated of a week of respect in New Jersey. School districts and charter schools, in order to recognize the importance of character education, are required to observe the week by providing age-appropriate instruction focusing on preventing HIV, harassment, intimidation, or bullying. School Violence Awareness Week. Since 2003, schools and districts have been observing School Violence Awareness Week during the week beginning with the third Monday in October, which is October 17th through 21st, 2022, is required by NJSDA 18A 36-5.1.
Sorry, Mr. Rogers, but do we have to have an open session for item C here, public comment?
That was our report and attachment A. Sorry, we got that immediately.
No. I don't think,
I think you can just open the floor.
Yeah.
I think that's what we did last
Yeah.
year. We opened, okay.
Yeah.
So I should go through and circle before I can.
Yeah, you should just pause for a second.
Okay. So back to C, the HIV self-assessment public hearing attachment.
So, we have a public comment section now. That's it.
Yeah, so we'll open it to the public for attachment A. Just seeing them, we'll close it to the public for attachment A. And we'll move on to item E.
Thank you.
Thank you. The following certified staff members are recognized for receiving tenure in the month of September 2022. Amanda Nunziata, Kelly DeRujo, Stephanie DiPiano, their tenure date was 9/2/2022. Congratulations. Joseph Down, Stephen Down, Nicole Harden, Woody Hilbert, Karen Darlene, Stephanie Leitner, Kimberly Muller, Stephen Myron, Kate Van Philly, Caitlin Ramirez, Kate Romeo, Kyle Sherhall, Virginia Vanderbeck, Anne Marie Zaremba, Amanda Saxton, and Amy Sisto.
Congratulations.
The results of the New Jersey Quality Single Accountability Continuum, NJ CUSAC, are attached. The Burton Township School District has been designated as high performing in international business.
Resident has 100%.
Good job, Kelly.
In two recommendations, it is recommended that a board approve the following faculty, staff resignations, retirements, terminations, leaves, transfers, assignment changes, appointments, stipends, salary adjustments, team teaching, mentoring as listed.
Okay, can I have a motion for 2A, please? Hang on, there's one. On the green sheet.
On the green sheet,
Where's the green sheet?
recommendations, it is recommended that they also approve, on the green sheet, the following staff, faculty, staff resignation, retirements, terminations, leaves, transfers, assignment changes, stipend, salary adjustments, team teaching, and mentoring.
I like the green sheet. Really gets your attention. Can I have a motion for, Mr. Tubbs? Mr. Zimmerman? Questions or comments? Then a roll call, please.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Conlon. Yes. Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Luther,
yes,
motion carries.
Thank you.
B, it is recommended that the board approve the following appointments for the Community Learning Center in Long Meadow Middle School for the 2022-2023 school year. All positions are being approved by the 21st Century Community Learning Branch Center grant.
Can I have a motion for 2B, please? Mr. Zimmerman?
Second.
Mr. Kraus? Questions or comments? Then a roll call, please.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Conlon. Yes. Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Luther,
yes,
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you.
All new appointments are required to comply with state statute regarding fingerprinting, security checks, and appropriate legal clearance and federal employment eligibility verification, Form I-9. Such employment is provisional. Each employee under flexibility attests that he or she has not been convicted of all the following crimes pursuant to the provisions of New Jersey statutes and updated NJSA 18A 6-7.1, NJSA 18A 39-17, or NJSA 18A 6-413, as applicable. These positions are being filled as a result of resignations, retirements, new positions being added in the case of substitutes to fill the regular personnel. C, in accordance with Public Law 2001, Chapter 299, amending Section 1 of the Public Law 1982, Chapter 163, 18A 17-46, the school district's 2021-2022 Student Safety Data System (SSDS) report is attached. The board and administration will entertain questions and comments on this matter at this time. Paul's there.
Hey, you don't have to read the whole thing.
Okay, thank you.
But you were doing a good job.
Yeah, you ain't the time.
It is recommended that the board accept the Student Safety Data System (SSDS) report for the 2021-2022 school year, and that's a report we.
A motion for 2D, please.
The move.
Mr. Sweeney?
Second.
Mr. Kraus? Questions or comments? Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Conlon. Yes. Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Luther,
yes,
Mitchell.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you.
It's recommended that the board approve professional development travel that complies with the provisions of New Jersey statutes and NJS A 18A 11-12 attachment dates. It's recommended that the board approve. Do I have to?
No, you have to wait.
We're gonna wait for the vote.
Can I say something?
Yes, the motion first,
The
right?
one for C, you said D.
I know, I did.
So.
Thanks for pointing that out. So anyway, I should have said C the last time. Now I'm going to say, can I have a motion for 2D? Mr. Zimmerman, would you like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Brave, she's only been president for 9 months. Give her a break.
You all are very sassy today. That's it. I made a no sense. And
Just be over and withdrawn with it.
Was that what C was?
have a second for 2D, please. Mr. Sweeney. Questions or comments? Have roll call, please.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Luther?
yes,
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
E, it is recommended that the board approve the harassment, intimidation, and bullying, school safety, and random drug testing reports.
Can I have a motion for 2E, please?
So moved.
Mr. Sweeney?
Second.
Mr. Kraus? Questions or comments? Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Luther?
yes,
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
F, it is recommended that the board, F, it is recommended that the board approve the maintenance of the memorandum of agreement between the district and law enforcement for the 2022 school year pursuant to Articles 11 and 12 memorandum act.
Can I have a motion for 2F, please?
So moved.
Mr. Sweeney?
Second.
Mr. Zimmerman? Questions or comments? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Luther?
yes,
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
G, it is recommended that the board approve the following job description for director of facilities.
Can I have a motion for 2G, please? Mr. Kraus?
Second. No.
Mr. Zimmerman? Questions or comments? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Coghlan?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Luther?
yes,
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
H, it is recommended that the board approve the revised 2022-2023 organizational chart attachment.
Can I have a motion for 2H, please? Mr. Sweeney? Second. Coghlan? Questions or comments? Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Luther?
yes,
Mrs. Mitchell? Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
It's recommended that the board approve the following policy regulation for a second reading, PR 2425, emergency work order.
Can I have a motion for 2I, please?
Move.
Mr. Sweeney?
Second.
Second, Mr. Kraus. Questions or comments? Can I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Luther?
yes,
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, it is recommended that the board approve the following policy regulation for second reading, policy alert 228. We can go to policy.
Can I have a motion for 2J, please?
So moved.
Mr. Kraus?
Second.
Mr. Sweeney? Questions or comments? Have a roll call, please.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Abstain.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lubner.
yes,
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, it is recommended that the board approve the emergency remote instruction plan for the 2022-2023 school year for second reading, attachment 2.
Can I have a motion for 2K, please?
So moved.
Mr. Sweeney?
Second.
Mr. Kraus? Questions or comments? Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yeah.
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lubner,
yes,
Mrs. Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, we have informational items, the use of buildings and grounds on page 9 and 10. And the planned field trips on page 10 and 11. That is A and B. And C is pursuant to the New Jersey Administrative Code and JAC 6A, 23A, 16.10, C3. I, Patricia Ratcliffe, Business Administrator Board Secretary, certify that as of August 31, 2022, no budgetary line item account has obligations and payments, contractual orders, which in total exceed the amount appropriated by the District Board of Education pursuant to the New Jersey statutes annotated NJSA 18A 22-8.1 and 18A 22-8.2, and no budgetary line item account has been overexpended in violation of NJAC 623-2.12A1. Now, item 2A, recommendations. It's recommended that the board approve the following financial reports: the list of checks, list of hand checks, transfers, and purchase orders. Can I have a motion for 2A, please?
So moved.
Mr. Kraus?
Second.
Mr. Sweeney? Questions or comments?
I have a comment. Why am I abstaining? Check ending 235.
I think it's Newton Hospital.
Yeah.
Is-
Oh, my wife works
Right.
there.
Right?
See, and you tell me about saying that. Thank you, Jen. He stands on the ball here. Okay, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes, but I abstain. Yes, abstaining.
I have that one. Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Abstain is noted.
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lubner,
yes, abstain were noted.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 2B, it is recommended that the board accept the report of the secretary for current operating fund for the month of July and August, for the months, and the report of the treasurer for school monies for the months of July and August. The board hereby certifies that after review of the secretary's financial reports for the month of August 2022 and consultations with the appropriate district officials, no fund has been overextended and that this sufficient funds are available to meet the district's financial obligations for the remainder of the fiscal year. These reports will be included in the minutes of this meeting. Both the secretary's reports and the treasurer's reports are in agreement. Attachment F5 is July, attachment F5A is August, and attachment F6 is July, and attachment F6A is. Have a motion for 2B, please.
Move.
Mr. Sweeney?
Second.
Mr. Zimmerman, questions or comments? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annenziana?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Luther?
yes,
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you.
Item 2C, it is recommended that the board approve transportation contracts as listed below. It's on the bottom of page 12, on page 13, and it's bending over onto page 14 with parental contracts and ending on page 15.
Can I have a motion for 2C, please?
No.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Second.
Mr. Kraus, questions or comments? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annenziana?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Luther?
yes,
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes,
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you.
Item 2D, sent and received students for 2022-2023. Whereas the Special Services Department has determined that individual students require special education placement based on their individual needs. And whereas the Special Services Department has determined that services are needed and will continue until June 30th, 2023. And whereas the Special Services Department has determined that the school service listed below is the most appropriate placement. Therefore, be it resolved that the Vernon Township Board of Education approve the contracts as listed below for tuition and services for students requiring special services and for other students enrolled in charter and vocational schools. And so the list continues on to page 16.
A motion for 2B, please.
So moved.
Ms. Coughlin?
Second.
Mr. Sweeney? Questions or comments? Roll call.
There's no competition for it. Special, not for just special service, just for charter school is a major portion of it.
In this particular list, yeah.
Yeah, that's just getting tech.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the very last sentence.
Yeah, you stuck that in there, yeah.
Yeah, the professional services department doesn't have anything to do with those.
Right, right.
We like the charter school for technology is much higher than how many students go there.
I don't know offhand. I'd have to tell you. I mean, we'd have to look it up. I'm guessing it's at least 20,000, probably more per student. That's what our tuition rates are. Funny.
Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Annenziana?
Yeah.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Luther?
yes,
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes,
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. Item E, I did make a change to that,
Yes.
so it's on for 3 years.
Yes, since in the second line where it says one, it should be THREE3, and then year should be the plural. So item 2E, it is recommended that the board approve the renewal of the lease sublease for the dog park property for 3 additional years from November 1st, 2022 to October 31,
2025.
Thank you. And attachment F7.
Can I have a motion for 2E, please?
So moved.
Mr. Second. Mr. Zimmerman? Questions or comments?
Why 3 years?
Why 3 years? It was it used to be 5 years, and then we changed it to every single year because the thought process was that we were going to sell the dog. Then we did contact the town to offer them the dog park for $1. They declined twice now. So therefore, we decided, there's like engineering that you would have to do to section onto one section with the solar panels. So that would be an added expense. We're not going to be doing that. We're not selling the dog park. So instead of having to constantly remind ourselves every single year to do this lease, we're doing one lease for free.
Interesting. Very innovative.
Thank you,
You're
Justin.
welcome, Kelly.
I'm so glad that we're not doing any sets. Okay, so, any other comments? Have a roll call.
Mrs. Coghlan,
Yes.
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lukner,
yes,
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. It is a little interesting, I can tell you this, I went to, my land use meeting yesterday, and we had the state there, and they talked about funding that the Northport people can get because of that, property, and they can have different things supplied to them for free, Stephen.
So we could raise the rent.
$100% increase.
Gotta go easy.
Yeah.
But it's really exciting stuff.
Item 2F. Oh, did we vote?
We did, okay, sorry, I just made a little comment.
2F, it is recommended that the board accept a $2,000 unrestricted donation from the New Jersey Principals and Supervisors Association to Vernon Township High School. The high school would like to use this donation for the purchase of items to support our student wellness spaces.
And I have a motion for 2F, please.
Second.
Mr. Zimmerman, Mr. Sweeney, questions or comments?
And how did we qualify for this $2,000 unrestricted donation from the NJPSA?
I don't know. I don't think it was,
Those are bubbly personalities.
It was from the high school.
someone at the high school must have done something to do it, but, or it could have just been, and, offer to give us the money.
It's a perky.
It is our first meeting. We've been working on that as a team.
They saw how well we did on CUSAC with governance.
Yes,
And-
100%.
So that's a deserving district.
Well, I would like to think our principals and
Well,
supervisors had something nice to
G,
do.
also.
They're the ones who reached out.
I would
I think
think
that's
that
great.
they're perfect.
And I would hate to point out the wrong person.
Well,
Okay.
that's great.
Okay.
Well,
Do we know what they want to do with it?
once we find out, can we just announce that maybe next?
Okay, let us know what you guys decide to spend. Okay, cool.
And item, you have to vote.
Okay, I need a roll call.
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Luther,
yes,
Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 2G, it is recommended that the board accept a $1,000 unrestricted donation from the Vernon Historical Society. The high school would like to use this donation to support the enhancement of spaces centered on student wellness and will benefit the Student Services Suite at the Vernon Township High School.
I have a motion for 2G, please. Mr. Zimmerman,
Second.
Mr. Sweeney, questions or comments? We're just getting all this money. How fun is this? Right? Thank you, Historic Society. That's very kind.
And item 2,
Oh, no.
sorry.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Luther?
was that me?
It was.
Sorry, my kids are rolling around in the background. Yes,
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan,
Yes.
Mr. Kraus.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 2H, it is recommended that the board accept a $2,000 donation from the Foundation of Education Administration. This donation will be used to support social emotional learning and enhance student spaces at Vernon Township High School centered on student wellness. This donation will benefit the Student Services Suite, Student Wellness Center, and the Mindfulness Room at the high school.
I have a motion for 2H, please. Mr. Sweeney,
Second.
Mr. Zimmerman, questions or comments?
Was it just a coincidence that these came in at the same time?
It was all from the high school sent a lot of those out and it took until now. You know,
So who at the high school did it?
well, there's the person that sent it to me that I need to know which person was responsible for it.
Ah. Okay, roll call please.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Conlon,
Yes.
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lubner.
yes,
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 2I, it is recommended that the board accept the 2022-2023 non-public services agreement with the Sussex County Educational Services Commission and the funding for the provision of Chapter 192 services compensatory education in the amount of $1,977 and $4,408 for the provision of Chapter 193 services supplementary instruction for Fields of Green Montessori School.
And I have a motion for 2I, please.
So moved.
Mr. Kraus?
Second.
Mr. Sweeney? Questions or comments? Another roll call. please.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, I was writing myself a note. I'm going to be abstaining from this, just so everyone knows, because I'm on the board of directors on the Sussex County Educational Services Commission. So to avoid any conflict, I always abstain from anything of that nature.
Okay. You, Teresa? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Conlon,
Abstain?
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lubner,
yes,
Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 2J, it is recommended that the board approve the attached school employees health benefits program resolution to elect an employer premium delay option for a 2-month delay. This election has no cost to the district and will improve the district's cash flow position, providing an increase in the monthly cash balance of approximately $1 million. Attachment F8.
Okay, can I have a motion for 2J, please? Mr. Sweeney? Second? Anybody?
Second.
Mr. Kraus? Questions or comments? Justin, do you want to speak to this since you were in the finance? meeting when we discussed this?
Sure. This was a proposal by our business administrator. So this is in relation to our health benefit premiums that we pay. And we have an election that we can make, which simply allows the district to be on a 60-day delay in payments. It's pretty standard. And it just allows for increased cash flow, positive cash flow for the district. It doesn't mean we're not paying our bills or that we're not going to, but it just is not late. And they're not late because of it. It's just a voluntary election. And I thought it was a great suggestion by our business administrator. So thank you. It is it's so innovative.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Conlon,
Yes.
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lubner,
yes,
Ms. Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 2K, it is recommended that the board authorize the procurement by quotations of concession contracts for orthopedic and rehabilitation services, athletic field signage, and sporting events promotional announcements. The total value of and revenue from the concession is estimated to be approximately $3,000 a year. So, just saying that we could get quotes, and if the quotes are reasonable, we will enter into this. And that a quote is attached.
Can I have a motion for 2K, please?
So moved.
Mr. Sweeney? Mr. Zimmerman? Questions or comments? I think Mr. Sweeney has some pictures. I thought we did, I thought we did this already. As far as, like, I think we physically did this, correct?
No, We discussed it at the Buildings and Grounds. No, that's a mock-up.
Oh, that's a mock-up.
I'm sorry, that's not what it.
Oh, I thought, wow, that was great.
Yeah, but it came in and designed so that,
You know, Mr. Foley is very efficient, so he got that done very.
yeah, but I asked him to do it. Because I thought you'd want to know, and also the verbiage of what they're requiring us to announce at the games if we enter into this.
So if we do this, we do, get the 3,000 a year, but they are allowed to have this signage.
And they'll also have an orthopedic doctor at our football games.
Great, so how did we get in contact?
Bill Holden.
And is this
He
a private
said
company? or is
the
it-
athletic trainer knew that another district had a similar agreement.
With multiple vendors or just one?
It's,
Largest one.
Just the one.
it's
I don't know
just
how many-
one, it's a partnership between the rehab place and the doctor.
I'm sorry, did you say we'll have a physician at the games?
Yeah,
So then if a student gets hurt at one of our games and the physician's there, how does the insurance work? Who's responsible? Because we have a district physician already. So if the physician is there, then is our insurance covering this physician or is this physician coming in under their own insurance?
It's my understanding, it's not clear, but it's my understanding that they're doing this under their own insurance, but we should get that.
Yeah, because then if we have a student who gets injured and we have the physician go out and assist the student, like how does that affect Bollinger? How does that affect their private insurance? What if there's a lawsuit? I mean, I would want all that laid out so that way we know what liability we're taking on, what
What
liabilities the physician's taking on. And also, I mean, I don't know, but I would think there should be some sort of information. I mean, if we are, I'm not gonna say the names out loud because I don't know, but if the district is promoting these companies, again, what if it's a promotion, it's the only one we have, a student is injured and goes to who's advertised and then there's some sort of issue, I mean, kind of opening up. If we had multiple, it's different, I mean, but I don't,
So is the motion to approve this or to approve?
but it's to approve soliciting quotes to do this.
Okay.
But if the board would like to give me guidance, I welcome guidance, because right now we do have this one quote in-house that the athletic director is recommending that we accept.
So in addition to those questions, I would also want to know, would we be required or responsible to accept other interested advertisers for the football field, or can we really just pick and choose to allow just one company, I don't know what they are, to advertise?
and then
I believe the agreement probably is exclusive for this particular type of service, but if you would like to solicit quotes in general for advertising in our gyms or around our fields, we can do that.
Well, I think we should discuss that.
Yeah, I definitely think we should discuss it. I'm not saying that's the direction I want to go in. But are we allowed to limit it to just this one practice? Or?
yeah, like, so for, let's say we want to put up, ice cream, signs, because I'm all about the ice cream. But I mean, we have how many after little kids' games and whatnot, the team goes for ice cream. So can we say, oh, no, we're not, we won't allow an ice cream company
No, I
to
think
put something up? And that goes can go around athletic, fields, but like if this is getting into the world of medical and that opens up a whole, different, situation. So that's why I want to get to the nitty gritty of the liability with that. But I like ice cream.
Well, do we want to gain more data from Mr. Foley on this and then circle back? Or do you want us to go on?
Well, this is, if you don't, whether or not you think it's a good idea to,
But wait, I guess I have another question for you to that. Authorize the procurement of quotations and concessions. So like,
we could get from other groups, we could ask other groups,
So this is just authorizing you to get quotes.
yes,
We're not approving doing this.
right.
but then, so we didn't approve it yet to go get quotes or to advertise that yet it's already been done. My understanding.
No, no, she
no.
said this is a mock-up. I thought.
It does look like it's already been done.
Not all of it's done.
That's how they want it to look.
That's, yeah.
Right, but then we
Bill
can,
Foley did solicit the quote.
okay, so that's my question, because there's an email here, so I'm just trying to put all the puzzle pieces
Yeah.
together so I understand this correctly.
We talked about this in buildings and grounds.
Okay, that just didn't make it to the call. I missed the buildings and grounds meetings too, so I.
Yeah, Bill probably didn't realize that he needed board permission to solicit the quote. in the first place.
Right now, it makes sense.
Concessions are a special little quirky bird as far as procurement. So you need to have board permission, and at $3,000 a year, I could agree to it without further board approval. But from my take on your comments right now, I wouldn't do that.
It's not that I'm inherently opposed. It's
Yeah.
just that there's other questions about, does this
We'll follow up about with our insurance agent. I'll send the contract.
It may lead to a football field or a field with all kinds of placards.
We have some great realtors in town, and they want to
And
advertise.
some not so great.
Some
I mean,
Ouch, but we have. good
I did
ideas.
write this very specific for procuring quotes for this particular kind of signage. If you'd like to change it in general to make that we're authorized to procure quotations for athletic signage and promotional promotional announcements without specifying here.
I have an idea. I mean, we have some board members missing, and they had obligations tonight. Yeah, I think this maybe should be put on a work session, so that way we really can delve into and decide if that's the avenue we want to go. I mean, we just put $1 million into our fields. They're beautiful. I can't tell you how many other districts, when I bump into people, the first thing they say to me is, oh my gosh, your fields are beautiful.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that's the avenue we want to go, that's fine, if that's what the majority, but let's just have a discussion about it.
I don't love the idea of, endless billboards circling our football field.
Neither do I, but I didn't want to say that.
That's why I wanted to have an idea of what they were proposing, what it would look like.
Yeah, I mean, it's so beautiful when you go up there, so that's what I just wanted to. I just think, that might be a good work session discussion, that's a lot of S's. While everyone's here, the majority are here, so we can get everyone.
Instead of going,
Why don't we just remove it?
remove it.
You have a first and second, right?
I'm not sure of the procedure, what you can do.
You can do a motion to table.
That would be a table. That's how my group won at a training.
I want the poster.
Shelley wanted to first read a poster, remind you the knowledge.
Some type of criteria that her group won, but we wanted the poster, and it was the visual that mattered.
But so.
Okay, no, not to
Motion to strike from the agenda.
yeah, and then we can move it to another date or just strike.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to strike it. You can just do all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank Dr. Anderson applied for those two $2,000 donations.
Oh, Dr. Anderson.
I'll just explain to you that those trauma-informed, that 2 years that we worked on those trauma-informed where the teachers were all trained and the parents 1 year. And last year was all of that suicide prevention. When we wrote for those grants at the end of our full year, they gave, actually it's $2,000 from one, $1,000 from another. And Jess Palladini reached out to me and said the Historical Society always gives a grant, and I asked her if it could go into the Student Wellness Center.
Oh,
So those were, but now we
You know
were
what-
told by our new BA, we don't accept them until it's approved at a board meeting. And I'm just ready to get money.
Do you know what we're,
And I probably would have brought it to Rolling Hills now.
do you know what we're doing with what we were able to do with the funds?
Sure, I know that they are redoing that whole student center, and just trying to get, items in there that make it feel comfortable for students. There's also upstairs, I don't know if they've moved those bean bags and whatnot, but the COVID shut down a lot of that, kind of where students could gather, and so I think they're recreating that center and, creating a few places, in addition to that they've moved all of the counselors and the, case managers into that one area that was where offices were, and it was used as the COVID overflow room for a while. So I think those spaces are all going into that.
For those.
Oh, you're welcome, though. Those were well worth, they were wonderful grants. We're writing for one for Rolling Hills now.
oh, good.
Thank you, Dr.
And you need board approval to apply.
When I get the,
No, they have to approve you
up
to apply for the grant. There's two parts of the board approval. Sorry.
Well,
Thank you, Dr.
we want any donations that we can get, so we will
Yes.
always approve them.
That's
We
right.
will,
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Okay, we are on
Two
L,
now.
which is on the green sheet and on the white sheet.
Correct. It is recommended that the board approve the disposition of the following items as they are either obsolete or in disrepair. There's a list there and on the bottom of the green sheet and continuing on the back of the green sheet. There's a few items.
Can I have a motion for 2L, please?
so moved.
Mr. Sweeney,
Second,
Mr. Zimmerman, questions or comments?
Isn't this a little bit, getting down to the real nitty gritty, a fire truck? You know, we're just looking at that sort of plastic toy fire truck.
Value.
Can't we just throw these things out?
You're
I mean, it's kind of funny, but.
I
but-
support that because it's nice
I
to
know,
finally
but-
see this on here because it does have value. I'm telling you. And if it has value, then it should be listed,
Okay.
whether it's a
Well,
cent or
even
a
if it
dollar.
does anything, that's not like any kind of asset, we're supposed to
Well,
list
thank you.
before we either throw it away, or if it has value, we're supposed to try and sell it in some manner, or give it to another school district or something.
Thank you. So.
But most of these items, they said they were all really good.
So do you have garage sales at your house on a weekly basis?
No, but I go to garage. You know, I went to the Toys R Us bankruptcy sale when I was working at Fairlawn, and we bought tons of stuff, full locker room, full lockers. I like garage. So, anyway,
Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Zimmerman,
yes,
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Conlon,
Yes.
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lubner,
yes,
Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Motion carries.
okay, 2M, it is recommended that the board approve accepting the federal 2022 supply chain assistance grant estimated to be at least $48,785.96 for use by our food service program to purchase unprocessed or minimally processed domestic food products. Attachment F9.
Can I have a motion for 2M, please?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Zimmerman? Thanks. Mr. Kraus, Mr. Sweeney. Questions or comments? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Conlon,
Yes.
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lubner,
yes,
Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman.
yes,
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 2N, it is recommended that the board approve the list of additions and deletions to the fixed asset list. Attachment F10.
I have a motion for 2N, please.
So moved.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Second.
Mr. Sweeney, questions or comments? Have a roll call.
Mrs. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Luther?
yes,
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 2O, it is recommended that the board approve accepting the funds for the Year 2 Restorative Justice and Education Grant, Keene University, in the amount of $12,500.
Can I have a motion for 2O, please?
So moved.
Mr. Kraus? Mr. Sweeney, questions or comments? Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Luther?
yes,
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan? Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 2P, it is recommended that the board approve accepting the funds for the Bond Act Water Grant in the amount of $13,198.
Can I have a motion for 2P, please?
So moved.
Mr. Kraus?
Second.
Mr. Sweeney, questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Ms. Luther?
yes,
Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan? Yes. Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 2Q, it is recommended that the board approve Help is at Hand to provide PRON PT therapy services to students for the 22-23 school year at a rate of $186 per hour. Attachment F11.
Can I have a motion for 2Q, please?
So moved.
Mr. Sweeney,
Second, Coghlan?
Ms. Coghlan, questions or comments? Have a roll call, please.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan? Yes. Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Luther?
yes,
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 2R, it is recommended that the board approve the school nursing contract between Vernon Township Board of Education and Above the Rest Home Care of New Jersey LLC for the 2022-2023 school year at a rate of $70 per hour for substitute registered nurses. Attachment F12.
Can I have a motion for 2R, please?
So moved.
Mr. Sweeney,
Second, Coghlan?
Ms. Coghlan, questions or comments? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan? Yes. Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Luther?
yes,
Mitchell?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Now we're on to the green sheet. Item 2S, it is recommended that the board accept the Walkhill Group Inc. of Hamburg, New Jersey's bid and authorize the business administrator to sign a contract for the Glen Meadow Music Room Acoustic Upgrades 2022-2023 Capital Reserve Project in the amount of $293,000. Attachment F13. Prosen Construction Company, Rumson, New Jersey, was the second bidder with a total bid of $386,000.
Have a motion for 2S, please. Mr. Sweeney,
Second.
Mr. Zimmerman, questions or comments?
Pat, can you remind us what we allocated for capital reserve for this project? Were we in line with the bid?
No, the bid is over. At the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting, I didn't bring the information that all the projects are coming in over. And so the Buildings and Grounds Committee recommended that we not proceed with the tennis court full renovation so that we have extra funds to put towards the other projects that
And with not proceeding with that project, will we have sufficient funds in capital reserve to cover the difference?
it appears so. Also, when on the Windows project, we cut the Windows project down a little bit.
for some of the more cosmetic windows.
No, we took the atrium window out. That
Yeah,
was
that's what I
the-
meant.
That
Right?
was the only one.
And what about the,
The front window never was in.
The front,
I
window was
mean,
never.
It never was?
No, we went over that in buildings and grounds. The architect had said we could remove some of, the windows from the 2000s. But that is the freshman academy, and that is the first thing that our freshmen see when they come into our building for the first time. And I just don't agree with removing them. So what we did,
are those windows in need of replacement as well?
they're completely fogged.
Those ones are too,
they're-
even the ones from only 2000?
Yes,
Wow.
so, it's not a structural issue like some of the others, but it is, you can't see out of those windows at all. So I just think, I'm sorry.
A shade.
Yeah.
And I would also think,
Yeah.
that's a safety issue as well, so.
Yeah.
outside.
So,
That's safe.
he said, well, oh, to cut corners, we could do that. And I said, well, why don't we take the tennis courts, we're patching those, we have, a price on that.
Yes, and we put a PO and Bill Foley called, he said he'd like to delay the patching now until the spring.
Okay.
So I directed the contractor to,
What is the PO coming out?
his feeling on that is the girls' tennis season is over now. And so he'd rather patch after the winter.
What did the PO come out to? But
It was like $4,700 and something dollars.
So then we'll go out to bid for the tennis court next year. And we'll be able to, go ahead and do the, patching.
what do you mean go out for the tennis court next year?
Well, we stopped that bidding process.
And then we were gonna rebid the tennis courts this year. The buildings and grounds.
Well, I don't want to commit us to going out for the tennis courts next year.
It was a thought process.
Yeah.
And so that way we just,
Because if we think that they're going to come in line with where the last bids came, in, which were over $500,000, we might not even pursue those for a couple of years.
no, but we're just going out for business.
Right.
So then, we can go ahead and take care of those windows in the freshman academy, which I really feel is a priority.
After finance committee next month, can you give us a breakdown of each of these projects, where they came in at and what we had initially budgeted for, and what that's going to leave
Yes.
in capital reserve before the deposit occurs this month? Okay, thank you.
And then and also included in that so much money that we have earmarked that we're getting back as part of the,
What would,
again,
the part we
asset
will
fund.
be financing with ESSER.
Thank you.
Item 2T.
Did we do a roll call?
No, we didn't,
Can
sorry.
I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lubner?
yes,
Mitchell?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 2T, it is recommended that the board accept the Spartan Construction General Contracting, Inc., South Amboy, New Jersey bid with the alternate number 3 deduction and authorize the business administrator to sign the contract for the Glen Meadow Middle School and the Vernon Township High School window replacement 2022-2023 capital reserve project in the amount of $2,116,540. Attachment F14. Wallkill Group Inc. of Hamburg, New Jersey was the second bidder with a total bid of $2,160,000.
Have a motion for 2T, please. Mr. Zimmerman?
Second,
Mr. Sweeney? Questions or comments?
just that they were close.
They were very good. Yes, depending on the deduction, yeah, they could have gone either way.
Yeah, just a quick question, because I don't know, what is that deduction? Why is that?
That is the cafeteria, that colored windows.
We took that out.
It was
Sorry, yeah, I didn't understand.
There's this great big long sheet describes the different possible deductions in the green.
Thank you.
F14.
We took that out.
Yeah, that's wise decision. For that price tag.
We asked if it was a structural issue, you know, and it's really, it wasn't like a secret. So, we will have it. Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lubner?
yes,
Mitchell?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Right, so now we're going over to,
salmon.
yeah, so, this is our last minute addendum, we'll scan that and put that in for the public tomorrow. So,
Item 2J. Item J to you.
yeah,
It is recommended that the board approve the following recommendation. Be it resolved that Rosemary Gebhardt is approved as acting assistant superintendent of schools effective September 16th, 2022 through December 16th, 2022, per the terms of the acting assistant superintendent employment agreement as approved by the executive county superintendent and the commissioner of education, which includes the additional payment in the amount of $100 per diem.
can I have a motion for 2U, please? Mr. Zimmerman,
Second.
Mr. Kraus, questions or comments? Number roll call, please.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yeah, I abstain.
Mrs. Conklin?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lubner?
yes,
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes,
Mr. Sweeney?
Abstain.
Motion carries.
thank you. And I want to thank Ms. Gephardt for stepping up and helping out. Okay, so that ends your part of it, Pat. Yes. And then we'll move on to item K, which is public participation. If we have any members of the audience that would like to come out, that's great. And anybody online,
Still Mr. Perringer?
does he have his hand raised?
He does not.
Okay. Just give him 1 second. Okay, then I'll close that to the public. And move on to the board members forum. Wanted to, add a couple of notes for some notable, open week notables. So I wanted to, thank the, Board of Ed and the union, Colleen Manzan and, also Mr. Christensen for working very, very well together and coming together for a solution for our aides, adding the 29 hours. I really appreciate everybody's hard work on that and the support of our aides. They do an enormous amount of work every single day, and this 29 hours is really going to help them. I want to move on to Marissa in transportation. I want to thank her for all of her hard work and quick reaction time. We've had a couple of glitches with transportation and she jumped right in, and I want to thank Denver Transportation for shipping in as well. But thank you, Marissa, for being so proactive and all your hard work on that. That is a very difficult job. I want to thank Russ for his extra bonus hours this week for filling in for Teresa for Woodland Hills, is it?
Oh,
Northern Hills.
Northern Hills, I'm sorry, Northern Hills. Thank you for attending that. I know that was difficult because we had all the back to school nights and we had to juggle around. So thank you for your bonus hours. And our Director of Guidance, Ms. Mattson, for her quick turnaround in getting our seniors prepared for college readiness. Having that seminar the first week of school was fabulous. So thank you for that. And the multiple teachers and staff for back to school nights, those are always a lot of work. They were very well attended and a lot of fun. So thank you to our staff for that as well.
I would just like to thank everybody involved, finance committee, fellows, building around. Putting these building and grounds things on, the windows are long overdue. The bridges, Glen Meadow necessary, but I do like the Glen Meadow music room as well. Music is not my strong point, but it's something that really directly affects kids. They need lights, they need windows, but that's a room that they're really gonna be in. Whatever they do with their loud noise. So, just really like to, everybody's involved in all that. Color board.
Thanks for your question.
I say congratulations to the girls soccer team. It beat Newton on Tuesday, 7-2. It's a really good job.
Were you able to go?
Of course. My granddaughter's on the team.
Oh,
I could thank individuals, but I know I'm gonna miss someone in the group, but it was just a pleasure to see kids back in school, happy, smiles on their faces, and everyone working together. We feel like we're so far ahead of where we were last year coming off of the pandemic, and it's nice to get back to this sense of the quality, highest quality education that we feel we can provide our students. And it's the whole community, staff, board members, teachers, administration. I'm going to bring someone in the list. Thank you all. And like the best part of my day is when I go visit the schools and see the students in their classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I'll close the open board meeting forum and ask for a motion to adjourn. Mr. Zimmerman? Mr. Kraus? All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.